I had never even thrown a football before I stepped onto the practice field for the Blanchet Bears. I had only ever done track and basketball before my senior year. I tend to prioritize individual accolades and achievements over team success. It's just the way I was raised, but I know I need to work on that. In practice, my teammates have told me that I lose my composure too easily when timing breaks down on routes or when the blocking's not great. I want to become an NFL caliber quarterback, dissecting the defense like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, but I'm more of an improviser right now. Scouts say that I don't process the game at a high enough level to play D1 football. They might be right, but that's a major area of focus for me in my one season at Blanchet. If I had to compare my game to anyone, it would be Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M, but we'll see how things play out. I was really excited when I threw my first touchdown pass against zone coverage in the first quarter. Scouts have already said that I need to work on my accuracy as well, but in fairness, I just started throwing a football. I'm excited for my first season, but I'm also a little bit nervous getting pushed into the starting lineup at quarterback my senior year with literally no game footage. In our first game of the season, we're playing against O'Dea High School, our #1 rival. O'Dea is always a contender to win the state championship. Their quarterback plays a similar style to me, very athletic and great at short passes. Their defense is always full of talented players that will probably end up playing college ball somewhere. We have very little depth on this team too, which requires me to play a safety sometimes. My running back is Sam Howell. He's also the coach's son, so it's an interesting and kind of weird dynamic there. He's more of a receiving back, kind of in the mold of a Christian McCaffrey type of player. My #1 weapon on offense, if you haven't already been able to see, is Tien Nguyen. The dude is making every play at wide receiver in the air or after the catch. Gio Saria also caught my first touchdown pass of my career, and he's kind of a beast too. Late in the third quarter, coach draws up a motion route mesh sort of play, and I take it outside the pocket, escaping the defensive end, running it upfield. No one is there, and I finally get tackled down after picking up nearly 20 yards rushing the football, and that is my track background showing up. There's still a lot for me to learn. I have less experience than Anthony Richardson did playing college football. Coach started calling a lot of short passing concepts down in their part of the field, and I kind of ad-libbed a little bit here and there, finding Howell for a short gain. On 2nd and 1, I thought I got into the end zone, but dove a little bit too early, and on 1st and goal, handed off to Howell to give us the 21-3 lead going into the fourth quarter. I initially struggled with making reads in the option game, but Coach and I had months to prep for our first game against O'Dea, and he has the experience playing against them each year, so I relied on him for all of the play calls. On 3rd and 5, when we needed a first down the most to kind of secure the W, I do get sacked, and they get the ball back, and I give up a crucial first down pickup on 3rd and 4, playing safety, and then on the opposite side of the field, they do score a touchdown to make it a one-possession game. But it didn't really end up mattering. We got the ball back. They couldn't secure the onside, and we walk away with a 21-15 W over O'Dea in the season opener. And after securing the W, we play against Lake Serene in the second game of the season. And I'll be honest with you, I have never even heard of Lake Serene before. But I start off the game using my legs to get a 14-yard pickup on the read option keeper. Immediately after getting that big pickup, though, I do take a sack, kind of hurting the drive, making it 2nd and 17. But I find my tight end, Michael Weisbecker, to get us some yards, making it a 3rd and 1, and on the 3rd and 1, another read option keeper. I almost break it for the touchdown. And this game just became a showcase for my ability to scramble and what I can do in the read option game as I take it for another 20-yard rush on our initial drive. And then I find Tien Nguyen on the curl route, and he does the rest, taking it all the way for the touchdown. I told you he was a versatile weapon. Another read option keeper here, and I take it all the way this time for another touchdown. Coach lets me sit back and throw a deep shot to Tien Nguyen, one of my first opportunities of the season, and it gets deflected by the corner. Still working on that deep ball accuracy. I do find Tien Nguyen later, though, on a nice post route, so the medium to long range accuracy is pretty good. And then I find Howell on a halfback screen. Again, that Christian McCaffrey type of build, getting in for another score. We have a 35-17 lead at this point, and this game is basically in hand. I scramble out to the right, which has worked all game, and I take a giant shot. I told Coach after the hit that I was feeling like I lost my balance, that I wasn't sure how much time was left in the game. definitely thought I had a concussion, but he told me to get back in anyways. I take another hit on another halfback screen. And again, I'm telling coach that I probably should get pulled out of the game, but I'm still in late in the third quarter. I escape out to the right, and I'm not even looking at my receivers. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but I take another big hit, taking a sack. And on the next play, I do end up finding Tien Nguyen, who does the work for me, gets into the end zone for another score, which basically ends the game. And at this point, man, I'm basically pissed. I'm still in the game. I'm not feeling good. I don't think I should be in the game to begin with. I think I have a concussion for sure. And my first interception of the season comes on a linebacker lurking on a curl route that I just didn't see. And again, I'm not seeing the field all right. I'm not playing at 100%. And that causes me to throw the first pick of my career. After the game, coach shakes hands with the Lake Serene head coach. And again, I'm feeling some type of way about what happened at the end of the game. And I sort of lost a little bit of trust in our coach, I'm not going to lie. And I did have an outstanding game, which resulted in scholarship offers from Oregon State and Boise State. I ultimately decided on Boise State. Going into the third game, I'm good to go at this point. I am feeling 100%. To start the game, it's a halfback screen to Alex Howell, again, the head coach's son. We go to another read option here. This time, pitched it off to Howell when I probably should have kept it. And when you're a running quarterback, you can't let the hits that you're taking dictate your style of play. I should have kept the ball in the option, and on this play, I should have scrambled instead of stopping and trying to make a throw. There wasn't enough time to make that throw. And on another option play, I make a mistake in trying to pitch it too late, not reading the play correctly, and it results in a turnover. My second turnover of my career. But I do make the correct play on the next drive with Howell finally pitching it off, getting a 9-yard gain. And after having an injury, I'd like to have more passing opportunities like I just did. But coach seems pretty dedicated to running the ball and using a lot of option plays. I continue to struggle playing safety as I give up another big gain. And on the next drive, I finally get fed up with how much coach wants to run the football. And quite honestly, I'm still upset about him leaving me in the game in our previous game, despite the fact that I had a concussion. So that all boils over as I audible every single pass play on this drive into a run with only 30 seconds remaining. I don't care. I'm just running it every single time. We're burning a ton of clock. We could take a significant lead before half. Coach is staring me down, and I don't care. He decides to bench me for the second half of the game. We do end up winning regardless, and I still get a scholarship offer from Oregon State. Going into our fourth game, we're playing against Vernon, an 0-3 team, and Tien Nguyen takes it on the drag route all the way for a 75-yard receiving touchdown, breaking a tackle as he gets into the end zone, and that kind of dictated how this whole game played out. Again, we're 3-0, Renton is 0-3, we are much better than them, but I do take a really dumb sack, making it 2nd and 17. But on 3rd and 18, coach opens up the playbook a little bit and lets me try to make a one-on-one throw to Tien Nguyen. It does get knocked away by the corner. On the option play that we decide to run, I do make another mistake in the pitch, which results in another fumble. So I have 2 fumbles on the season now and 1 interception thrown. Tien Nguyen continuing to make crazy plays running after the catch, breaking tackles, but I find Gio Saria for a bomb down the middle, down the seam, all the way into the end zone for a touchdown, dragging 2 defenders, and that gives us a 21-0 lead. On the following drive, Ostrander, our 3rd-string wide receiver, is starting to get a little PT, and we find him on the initial curl route. Coach calls a timeout, says look for Ostrander on the go route. One-on-one, he cannot beat his matchup, and Davis from Renton does get the interception, my 2nd interception of the season. Another triple option play where I make a mistake in not handing it off to our fullback. On this play, though, I do make the right decision. Eventually, I could have potentially, pitched it off to our running back, but I decided to keep it instead, but it results in a big gain anyways. Continuing to run triple option plays. This time, I'm going to take it all the way myself for the touchdown. Another big-time touchdown, taking that 28-0 lead against Renton. And we get the ball back once again. Renton's offense is non-existent. Coach seems to be trusting me more in passing the football. He must have listened to me a little bit after kind of my temper tantrum in Game 3. And that definitely wasn't the right way to go about it. I pissed off some teammates, but Bennett with a great catch off of the touch pass for the touchdown, showcasing my ability to not just throw bullet passes, but yeah, using a little bit of touch on some passes as well. Another read option keeper. I almost get into the end zone for another score. We hand it off to Glick on the next triple option to take a 42-0 lead. And we end up winning the game. I have a good stat line. I get an offer at quarterback from Washington State, and I get an offer at free safety. I felt really good in Game 4 of the season against Oak Harbor. I threw a perfect touch pass over the DB's head for 30 yards to start off the game, but on the very next play, I threw my first interception. Coach had completely switched the game plan up on me against Oak Harbor. He had me throwing the ball every play, whether it was a screen, a post route, or a slant. I was frustrated with myself for throwing that initial pick because I assumed he was going to limit my passing. We started running the ball a little bit more, but he still gave me opportunities to pass, and then I threw my second interception of the game, and then the DB fumbled the ball on the return. And I'll be honest, I could already hear it coming. Scouts saying I can beat up on bad record teams, but I get flustered versus the top teams in our division. I already have to fight the stigma of being a run-first quarterback because of my athletic background, and this is not going to help. I'll be honest though, I feel like my head hasn't really been in it since I started seeing this girl, Emma. See, Emma was dating my friend and teammate, Gio Saria. Yes, Gio Saria, as in the wide receiver I throw the ball to pretty consistently. And when you're a teenager, sometimes you make a dumb mistake, but I don't know if you can call it a mistake if it happens like more than 10 times. Anyways, while the team bus was loading up, getting ready to go to Richland for our next away game, Emma and I were in the hallway of the school on the 3rd floor. We were tonguing each other's mouth holes when Mr. Few, my photography teacher, caught us in the hallway. Now, Blanchet is a private Catholic school, so doing any sort of PDA on school grounds was heavily frowned upon, and Mr. Few was kind of a creep. Several girls at the school had told me that he made them feel uncomfortable in his class. Now, see, the weird thing was he told us to go our separate ways and that he'd be in contact with our parents, but then I noticed that when Emma walked away that he started to walk in the same direction as her. So I decided with my spidey senses that I would follow them to make sure this dude wasn't up to anything. At one point he did stop her down the hallway and he had a separate conversation with her from the one he already had with the two of us. So I decided to make my appearance and show myself so Mr. Few knew I was there, and he reminded me that I was going to be late for the bus. And then I said back to him that we were undefeated with me at QB up to this point, so they're probably not going to leave without me since it was only like 2 minutes after we were supposed to leave. He reiterated more firmly and bluntly that I should leave immediately. So I had to think on my feet. I made up the excuse that Emma had borrowed my TI-84 calculator and she had it in her locker and I needed it tonight for some calculus homework. And I'm in like pre-algebra as a senior, so I am barely passing that class. That got him to leave us alone. And then I had a conversation with Emma afterwards, and she told me that he was being really pushy in their conversation together. And I asked her if she wanted me to report this to anybody like the dean or some teachers, and she just told me that she'd rather not for the time being. So after all of that happened, I loaded up on the bus about 5 minutes late, and we headed to Richland, Washington. Now, if you don't know the geography of Washington State, Richland is kind of more towards Oregon, kind of more towards Idaho. It's in the southeast sort of corner of Washington State. And we actually had a scout that was coming to watch me at the game and a couple of my teammates. And this guy specifically was coming from Oregon State. He actually told my coach that he was interested in me at quarterback, but he was worried about my lack of arm talent. Coach relayed that message to me before the game, and so I was on a mission against Richland to prove that I can make basically all of the throws that you'd want me to make at Oregon State. And I'm not going to lie, I started to force the ball a little bit. I started to throw some passes that weren't really there, some out-of-body sort of plays. I will say that Gio Saria was doing really well in the slot for us, but even though we had a 14-3 lead before the end of the first half, we tried to score again, and instead I threw another interception. Coach started having us run more option plays, and we scored our last touchdown of the game to give us a 20-3 lead. But I did have some more turnover struggles in this game, but we still come out with a victory 20-6. And I'll be honest, my stat line was nothing really crazy. Most of my teammates did a lot of the work for me, as I finished with only one touchdown. It was a rushing TD, and I finished 13 for 24 passing for 200 passing yards, and we ended up getting scholarships from Oregon State after the game and Boise State. So we did make progress, and we got that scholarship from Oregon State. And in our next matchup, we played Mercer Island, who was 0-6. And on our first possession, I tried to hurdle somebody, and I fumbled the ball instead. Of course, you know, I got some experience with hurdling from my track background, but not with pads on. So that made me kind of jump weird. And then on our next possession, I took another sack. This time, again, my first time ever taking a safety. And so it's not looking good. We're down 2-0 to an 0-6 team, but I kind of use my legs to scramble outside of the pocket, extend the play, and find Ostrander, one of my top wide receivers. And then later in the drive, we find Nguyen on a curl, and he beats his man with his quick acceleration. And right here, I should have had Nguyen again for a bomb TD. Again, my deep ball accuracy has historically been pretty rough, but I find Bill Wilson on the very next play, our backup running back, for a 34-yard pass down the middle. And then again, on an option play, I find Bill Wilson, and he takes it all the way for a TD, making some plays at backup running back, kind of fighting for Howell's job. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows as I scramble outside the pocket at the end of the first half, up 13-9, and I fumbled the ball, and Mason recovers, and he's going to take it all the way for a touchdown to give Mercer Island, again, an 0-6 team, a 16-3 lead. But we do find a win on another drive in the third quarter for a touchdown on a slant route. And on the very next drive, we find Weisbecker, our tight end, who does all of the work after the catch, breaking a tackle, taking it for a TD. And then we find Giosaria over the middle. The middle part of the field was pretty wide open against this Mercer Island team. We find Hussein underneath on a short out. He doesn't quite get into the end zone, but on the very next play, we run a triple option, and I can easily run it in for the TD. And we explode in the second half to take a significant lead over Mercer Island and come away with a victory. And this is the kind of game that I probably should have had against Richland, but we ended up getting the Oregon State scholarship at QB anyways, so it's no big deal. But 4 total TDs, 40 rushing yards, and a good amount of passing yards as we get scholarships from Maryland and Washington State. Additionally, we've garnered some interest from 3 more teams, and we decided to stick with USC. It's interesting to see, as a track and basketball athlete switching to football for 1 year, what sort of teams that we could potentially go to. For our 7th game of the season, we were playing against the defending state champs, Bellview. And not only were they the defending state champs, but they also had been ranked nationally for the last few years as a high school program. So on my first throw of the game with an undefeated record on the line, I get picked off by Corbet, the DB, who almost returns it for a pick 6. We get the ball back once again, and on the first play, we run a triple option, and I incorrectly pitch it off to my running back, and we turn the ball over a second time. So at this point, we're down 14-0 because of me, and I'm getting pressured outside the pocket. I throw a really bad pass to a receiver who is triple covered, and so they get the ball starting at the 40-yard line with my second interception of the game and my 3rd turnover, and I get absolutely destroyed by one of the DBs blitzing on a play. And at this point, you could definitely say that I'm rattled. The only thing that helped us get back into the game a little bit was my ability to run the football, because coach just didn't trust me to throw the football at this point. And we scored our first touchdown midway through the third quarter. Down 14 at the start of the fourth, we still had a chance to fight back into this game. After my 20-yard scramble, I used my legs to distract the defense, leaving my running back wide open for the second touchdown of the game. Unfortunately, my defense couldn't make the last stop. They do score a field goal, and so that puts us out of the game. I score a touchdown at the last second, and we do lose 24-21. Despite the L, we get some interest from some Pac-12 teams to play quarterback between Utah, UCLA, and Stanford. Our second to last game of the season came against Mount Vernon. After taking our first L, we needed to get a W on the board to stay in the playoff hunt. I complete my first throw of the game, and I think I've fixed my early turnover problems, but unfortunately, my wide receiver and I weren't on the same page for this route, and I throw my first interception of the game. Now, I come right back and deliver an absolute dot, lofting the ball over the DB's head perfectly. I love corner routes, and my guys always gets consistently open against man coverage. We're down 7-0 to Mount Vernon, but I know we're the better team. With under 2 minutes left in the first half, I drive us down the field, finding Giosaria wide open on the same route twice in a row for a touchdown to tie the game. And Giosaria has been pretty consistent for me despite the fact that we've had off-the-field issues. I find him again over the middle of the field for another 20-yard pickup. And with 23 seconds remaining in the first half, Mount Vernon scored a field goal already, so we're down by 3. I look for Giosaria again and throw my second interception of the game with 18 seconds remaining and almost putting them into field goal range. They do not score a field goal. But we're only down by 3 points despite the fact that I have 2 interceptions, so coach wants me to use my legs a little bit more, designs a run play for me, and on the next play, I scramble outside the pocket and pick up 8 more yards. There's 2.5 minutes left in the third quarter, and on a read option, I almost turn over the ball, but Bill Wilson makes a huge play. And on the next play, I reward him by finding him on the wheel route, wide open, almost able to get into the end zone, down at about the 5-yard line. And it turned out to be huge that he didn't get into the end zone on that play because we didn't even score a field goal on that drive. And on the next possession, I scramble outside the pocket and pick up 17 more yards rushing the football to start the fourth quarter, still only down by 3. I'm looking for my number 1 guy, Giosario, over the middle and throw my 3rd interception of the game, just forcing the ball down the middle at this point. And so my confidence is pretty much gone at this point throwing the football, but my O-line tells me to pick my head up because we're still in this game. And then my terrible 7-step drop turns into a much longer drop back, making the throwing window so small, leading to my 4th interception of the game. But believe it or not, we're still in this game with 22 seconds left. We have an opportunity to win the game if we score a touchdown. I find Giosario wide open over the middle of the field. We stop the clock after getting the first down pickup. And with 15 seconds left, we got to make up a lot of ground. So I throw a one-on-one ball up to Ostrander. He doesn't even look for it, and the DB Schneider easily intercepts the ball, leading to my 5th interception of the game, and we end up losing this game to Mount Vernon 13-7. And this ends up being the play of the game as well. Again, Ostrander not even looking for the ball, doesn't jump for it whatsoever. And the DB makes a play on it, and we lose our 2nd game of the season back-to-back after losing to Bellview. I do get a scholarship from Arizona State, but there's only 1 game left in the season, so we're going to have to make the most of it before we go into the playoffs. After the season ended, scouting reports came out, and I compared favorably in terms of athleticism, improvisation, and throwing outside the numbers for quarterback, but they knocked me for low football IQ, character issues, and turnovers. And so they only gave me a C+ grade. We barely squeezed into the playoffs for the first time in 2 years. We had a number of seniors on the team who were trying to make one last run before their career was basically over. For a few of us, our careers would go on to college. Tien Nguyen and Giosaria were both heading off to play D1 ball. Some of our defensive players on the team were playing D1 and D2 next year as well. Our first game of the playoffs came against Edmonds Woodway High School, so they're 9-1. And I knew from the jump that I was going to have to limit my turnovers against this team to stay in the game. We were clinical on our first drive, putting together a number of really successful plays, and finally I find Tien Nguyen wide open on the curl route for our first touchdown of the game. And our second drive might have been even better than our first. I find Howell on a triple option play for a 6-yard pickup, and on 3rd and 1, I deliver a moon ball, perfect over-the-head pass to Michael Weisbecker. Just a great show of touch and control over the football. And on our next play, we run 4 verticals, and I find Howell, our running back, wide open again down the field. And who is our number 1 guy in the red zone? It is none other than Tien Nguyen picking up his 2nd touchdown of the game on a slant route. Not only am I looking really good in this game, but the D is doing their part too. We scored 2 defensive touchdowns and held Edmonds to 0 points midway through the 3rd quarter. Coach told me mid-season to start using my legs more to create new throwing angles, and that's exactly what I did. I started scanning the field as I scrambled, working with my receivers to find openings in the defense. I'll be honest though, sometimes the running lane was just a little bit too free and I had to take it into my own hands. I scored on the read option keeper to take a 35-0 lead, and we stamped our postseason with a big first-round victory over Edmonds Woodway High School. I finished the game with a 70% completion percentage, 300 passing yards, and 5 total touchdowns. And in the second round, we got our rematch with O'Day. Again, O'Day was our rival school that consistently beat us the last few years. Some of our seniors had never beaten O'Day in their careers before we beat them this season. O'Day wanted their revenge, and I could definitely tell that their defensive line was hungry to win this game. They were flying off the line of scrimmage, getting into the backfield with ease, making standing in the pocket difficult. I already scrambled at the smallest sign of pressure, so adjusting to a defensive line that really overpowered my offensive line was something that I hadn't dealt with since we played against Bellview. O'Day was so worried about creating pressure in the pocket, though, that they forgot to send a spy for when I might scramble. As long as I could run outside, I had a lot of space to make plays with my legs. That might have been O'Day's game plan, though. They locked up the passing game against us, forcing my receivers out of rhythm. With a minute remaining in the first quarter, we had no answers on offense for this defense. Improvisation is the only thing O'Day didn't really game plan for. I run right, drawing the D in before throwing a bullet to the backup running back, Bill Wilson. That completion got us into the red zone and in position for a potential touchdown as I scrambled outside the pocket and almost got into the end zone for the first touchdown of the game. We were down at the 1-yard line, and on the very next play, I pitched it off to Alex Howell, who ran it in for the touchdown. On our next drive, I continued to get the ball to our halfbacks. Alex Hall was able to turn this screen into a 25-yard gain. Glick, our fullback, even got involved on a triple option for a nice run. I thought I had just scored the second touchdown for us when I threw it to Nguyen on the goal line, but it turned out to be just short. On 3rd and goal, Glick took it in for the second touchdown of the game, giving us a 2-possession lead. With 20 seconds left, I misread the safety and threw it into double coverage, leading to my first interception of the playoffs. I was pissed. To start the 3rd quarter, I scored a touchdown immediately, but it happened to be for the other team. I didn't see the defensive end, and O'Day returned it for a touchdown. I had probably my best pass of the game midway through the 3rd quarter on 3rd and 12 when I found Nguyen wide open over the middle of the field for a 20-yard pickup. And on the very next play, I scrambled outside the pocket and ran it, again with no QB spy on me, going out of bounds at the 15-yard line. On 3rd and 5 from the red zone on the same drive, I look for Bill Wilson a little bit too late, and he goes out of bounds for a 1-yard loss, and we don't even make a field goal on the drive. So we still only have an 8-point lead at this point at the end of the 3rd quarter as I run for an 11-yard pickup to pick up the first down. To start the 4th quarter, we ran a triple option play where I kept it myself instead of giving it to Glick, and I got absolutely crushed on that play, taking a massive hit from one of the linebackers. And on the very next play, I throw an interception trying to find Nguyen on a post route. Walker intercepts it. And they end up scoring a touchdown off of that interception, but they go for 2 and don't complete it, so we're still up by 2 points. At this point, we're just trying to waste time. So on 3rd and 3 with 50 seconds remaining, I throw an absolute out-route dart to Ostrander, and that effectively seals the game, and we beat O'Day to advance to the semifinals of the Washington State High School football playoffs. In the semifinals, we got to play against Burien. But before we talk about Burien, we're going to talk real quick about what happened with Emma a little bit more. So someone leaked a rumor that Emma and I had been seeing each other, and it made its way into our locker room. I'm not the prototypical leader at quarterback, and I still hadn't earned complete respect from my teammates, especially after nearly sabotaging our game against Seattle Prep. Despite the fact that we were going to the playoffs, we had a lot of drama around the team. Word got to Gio that I was seeing Emma, and without even saying a word to me, he came up and knocked me out. I woke up still a little dizzy as Coach yelled at both of us to come into his office from the locker room. He told Gio and I that we were each suspended for a game, and that game happened to be the last regular season game before the playoffs. I screamed at Coach that we were about to hit the playoffs, and he looked at me with a blank stare on his face. After a few seconds without saying a single word, he stood up and walked out of the room. Gio walked out next. I got a text from my dad saying that a bunch of schools were worried about my off-the-field issues and they might pull my scholarship offers. I hadn't received any new offers since the rumors came up about Gio and I thought that this was probably my all-time low as a football player. But I had to get mentally prepared for this playoff run. Getting back to the game against Burien, if the first quarter was my best quarter of the postseason, then the second quarter could have been my worst. I started to get in my own head. I threw my first pick of the game, and then immediately after took a terrible sack. But just when things started to look really ugly on offense, on 3rd and 37, I delivered an absolute dagger. I started to catch fire. I wanted to snatch the hearts of the Burien team and their fans. Coach called a timeout and was talking about setting up for a field goal, but I told him that we're getting this touchdown no matter what. We're ending their season on this drive. I would not be denied. I almost got sacked, but threw the defender off of me before throwing the ball away. On the next set of plays, I took matters in my own hands, scrambling for a big chunk of yards. I felt the most in control I ever had felt in this exact moment. I demanded with 2 seconds left that Coach let me throw. I ran outside the pocket with no time left and delivered a strike to Nguyen, taking a 20-0 lead. And we ended up winning 20-0. Next step, playing in the Washington State Football Championship and signing day. I'll see you in the next one. We made it to the state championship, and we were driving down the field. Coach actually put together a really good play script before the game, and everything was coming to us easy. I was making plays inside the pocket and using my athletic ability to extend plays and find different throwing angles. I was even able to extend some plays I probably shouldn't have been able to by breaking free from some sacks. But everything kind of changed when I threw the ball to Bill Wilson on this motion route, and he dropped it. It gets tipped and intercepted by a Terrace DB. At the end of the day, whose fault it was doesn't really matter in the eyes of most. Almost everyone just looks at the final box score and attributes full blame to the individual throwing the picks. So far, I wasn't proving any of my critics wrong. This is a PSA, by the way. Look, if you came here for a story of a 5-star blue-chip quarterback who started throwing the football at the age of 3 and had everything given to him, you just came to the wrong place. I have to fight for everything I get in this series. Again, starting out as a player that had no experience before his senior season throwing a football, played track and basketball primarily. It was near the start of the second quarter, still 0-0, when I found Alex Howell on this really good option pitch, and Howell did the rest, taking it all the way up to the 15-yard line, putting us in position to potentially score our first touchdown of the game. Another option play was called, and I broke a few tackles before going down, making it 2nd and 6. I displayed great patience on 3rd and 7, waiting for Hussein to clear the linebacker before throwing it to him for the first touchdown of the game. With 50 seconds left, I put together a masterclass of improvisation at quarterback, navigating edge rushers, blitzing linebackers, and excellent coverage DBs to find throwing lanes to my targets. Hussein was explosive in the passing game, having already caught 1 touchdown, and then Saria was able to finish off the drive, catching it behind the linebackers to get us a 14-0 lead at half. Mount Lake Terrace had turned the ball over to start the third quarter, and we were able to capitalize, getting another great option play, pitch off to Bill Wilson, who scored the touchdown. Before our championship game against Mount Lake Terrace at Husky Stadium, no less, a local piece came out in the Seattle Times about the altercation between Gio and I. I was painted in a really bad light, but to be honest, I couldn't say I didn't deserve it. I'd received a scholarship offer to play quarterback at the University of Washington, the school I dreamt of going to my whole life. Now, I didn't know I was going to play football for UW originally, but I grew up a huge fan, watching Isaiah Thomas and Terrence Ross play basketball, and then Jermaine Kearse and Miles Gaskin play for the football team. In this article, it was rumored that UW would be pulling their offer. Not only would I not be receiving a scholarship, but I wouldn't be receiving general admittance either to potentially play as a walk-on. My teammates picked me up when I needed it most, though. They made sure I locked into this state title game. The outside noise was not going to affect our chances of bringing back the first state championship for the school's football program since the 50s. It was 21-3 in the fourth quarter when I delivered the final nail in the coffin for Mount Lake Terrace. I scrambled out to the right, kept my head up, and delivered a beautiful lead pass over the top to Gio Saria. Gio was one of the guys who kept me in the game mentally, surprisingly. Next play, I found my number 1 wide receiver, Nguyen, on the slant for the game-sealing touchdown. My teammates and I got to celebrate after a crazy season. It was bittersweet knowing I only got this 1 year to play with the team before going to college. Speaking of college, I told everyone I was going to announce my decision after the state title game. The rumors were actually true. UW and several other teams pulled their scholarship. They cited a lack of team chemistry, a toxic locker room, and more. I was down to 3 choices: University of South Florida, Louisville, and Buffalo. After careful consideration, I decided I was going to become a Buffalo Bull. I picked Buffalo specifically because their coach sold me on the idea that I'd get to run a pro-style offense. I wanted to make it to the NFL, so I felt that I needed to develop significantly as a passer, more so than as a runner. The 2 stars on this team are Jamari Gassett, a wide receiver, and Aljay Henderson, a running back. Each of these dudes could make it to the NFL. I was getting ready to move to Buffalo towards the end of senior year when the schedules were announced. In our first week, we would be playing against the Ohio State University. Ohio State at the time was ranked number 2 in the nation, so we had a lot of work to do, and I'll see you in the next video.